A question that I am frequently asked, especially by my fall sport athletes, specifically my football players, is how can I prevent muscle cramps, or what should I be doing pre-game to prevent the muscle cramps during a game? It has always been sort of a stigma with muscle cramps that it's a sign of dehydration and electrolyte loss that causes the cramps, but research shows that it could be more complex than that. First, we must look at your past medical history and ensure that you are not taking any medications that are prone to excess water loss or sensitivity to heat. Then we will assess your previous incidences with muscle cramps and try to determine the cause of them. In a study conducted by Stone et al. 2003, approximately 94% of the athletic trainers surveyed indicated that pre-existing medical conditions were a somewhat or very important cause of exercise-associated muscle cramps. Furthermore, if we know more about the previous times you have cramped, we can determine if it was an exercise-associated muscle cramp, a cramp related to heat or environmental conditions, if it's related to the medications you are taking, or an underlying disease. By the Kentucky High School Athletic Association, football players are required to go through a heat acclimation period during preseason, where they start in shorts and a t-shirt and work their way up daily to being able to wear their full football gear. Kentucky High School Athletic Association also requires someone to monitor heat and humidity throughout preseason football practices and all games and practices once regular season has started. At our school, this is my responsibility. When the temperature and the humidity reach a certain point, it is my job to notify the coaches and tell them to remove helmets and pads and start mandatory 10-minute water breaks every 30 minutes. Once the temperature and humidity reach 104, all practices and games will be stopped. If you know that you are prone to cramping during increased temperatures, it is important to pay attention to your body and how it is feeling. If you feel that you are getting overheated and need extra breaks, you can tell me and I will let the coach know. According to Swellness 2009, the mechanism for exercise-associated muscle cramps is increased sweat sodium concentrations, or what they call salty sweating, resulting in a sodium depletion which causes exercise-associated muscle cramps. Swellness 2009 also went on to say that because sweat sodium concentrations are always hypotonic, significant loss of sodium through sweat can only occur if there is a large loss of fluid. This would mean that dehydration would accompany any significant sodium loss in athletes presenting with exercise-associated muscle cramps. However, a limitation of this study is the fact that it is presented by the athlete's self-reported past history of exercise-associated muscle cramps and never at the time of an acute exercise-associated muscle cramp or during an exercise bout where the exercise-associated muscle cramp occurred. It is important to discuss another possible cause of exercise-associated muscle cramps. There is a theory called the altered neuromuscular control theory that suggests that exercise-associated muscle cramps occur when several factors, including fatigue, inadequate conditioning, muscle damage, etc., are accompanied by an increase in alpha motor neuron excitability, by Miller 2015. For the sake of this discussion, we are not going to get into the in-depth details about that. However, just know that there are other causes besides dehydration and sodium loss that is thought to cause exercise-associated muscle cramps. There are actions that you can take individually that will help reduce fatigue and improve conditioning levels. If you find yourself falling behind in practices and becoming fatigued sooner than what is expected of you, you can always stay after practice and ask the coach to help you with some of the position-specific drills and exercises. Some people need more time than others to prepare their bodies for the demands being placed on them. If football is your only sport, it is important to condition in the off-season to make the transition back into season earlier. Miller 2015 gives another good idea to possibly help prevent exercise-associated muscle cramps, suggesting the athlete or clinician keep a cramp journal and document what was going on when the exercise-associated muscle cramp took place. Include information like the temperature, time of day, food and drinks that were ingested, type of activity being performed, the intensity of that activity, and how many days into the season the cramp occurred. This type of journal will allow you and me to pinpoint what could have caused the exercise-associated muscle cramp and begin to form a regimen to prevent it from occurring again. As you can see, the prevention of muscle cramps is actually more complex than just drinking more, avoiding the heat, or increasing sodium intake throughout the week. Each case can be different, and it is important to treat each case individually and not try to come up with a cookie-cutter solution. The cause of an exercise-associated muscle cramp has not been proven to be the result of just one thing. Rather, it is a complex incident that needs to be addressed personally between the athlete and the athletic trainer. To answer your question on what you can do to prevent them, first, let's start by looking into your past medical history and ensure that there are no underlying disorders or medications. If you are clear there, then we should start the cramp journal and try to pinpoint what is causing your cramps. Once we have it narrowed down, we can begin to make a plan to prevent them. I will be monitoring heat acclimation rules and heat indexes at all practices to monitor those potential causes. And I think with us communicating with each other and keeping records, we will be able to make up an individualized plan to help prevent any further exercise-associated muscle cramps during games or practices.